We acknowledge that Coquitlam is located on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territory of the Coquitlam First Nation, who continue to care for these lands, waters, and all living things. Welcome to the Face to Face. I'm your host, Genevieve Kyle Lefebvre. Face to Face is a bilingual series of video recorded here in Coquitlam. Today we're welcoming Ben Craig, president of the Maillardville Residents Association. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Genevieve, for the opportunity.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. I was not so long ago at the AGM. You did such a great job, and I love the presenter that was there. A lot of things are happening in Maillardville right now.
Yeah, the neighborhood is definitely going to transform in the coming years, and our goal as a community association is really just to help try to shape that and try to get as many residents involved as possible. Of course, the work we do at the ground level is more important than ever on the basis that a lot of these decisions around the shape and structure of communities these days has been taken out of our local leaders' hands, is now in the provincial government's hands, but I'm sure we'll get into more detail on that as the night goes on.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I'm curious, how long have you been the president of the association?
I've been the president since, a couple years after I moved to Maillardville, so probably 2018. And it was one of those things where, I showed up for a couple of meetings and then the AGM, and I find it's very important just to stay very still at those meetings, because the minute you move, they appoint you president of the organization, right? In any case, I was delighted to get involved. I came from a neighborhood called Oakdale, which is about 500 homes in the Coquitlam area. And Oakdale is a very interesting community because it's 500 homes, but it was a very engaged community on the basis that when I lived there, we had the Evergreen Line being built there. We had high density showing up all over the place. And so during our AGMs, unlike the one you saw the other night, we would have, in a neighborhood of 500 homes, we would have 200 people at our AGMs. They
Amazing.
Would be very engaged because the neighborhood was really transforming in that respect, right? And neighbors were looking at, selling their properties to developers. So they all had an interest. They were all mobilized. And that's what we need to recreate in Maillardville.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what does the association do for the people that live in Maillardville?
Yeah, okay, so we were founded in 2005 with one goal, and that's to make the community a better place to live. And we have a number of efforts to that end, including we do a litter pickup on a monthly basis. We have meetings where we try to bring local leaders together with developers and residents to, again, help kind of shape our community going forward with all the new development. We send out a newsletter a couple of times a year to keep the community informed, and we keep developers on track in terms of the state of their developments themselves. For example, the last couple of years we had 2 developments that were turning into dumping grounds that we worked with the city, and we're grateful for the city's response and got those cleaned up. So beautify the area and help engage our community in the shaping and future of our community, basically, yeah.
What are the projects that is coming into Maillardville?
Oh, there's a lot going on. And the overarching theme from our view is that they're approving thousands and thousands of new residents in Maillardville, and, without necessarily the infrastructure to support that. And for example, the Brunette Interchange. When I first moved to Maillardville, there was 3 plans on the table for that interchange. It's a high crash zone. It's a dangerous place, not a pleasant walk. If you ever walked across the freeway of that interchange, it's a big lineup in the morning. It's just not a functioning route of traffic. Plus, it's a route to Royal Columbian Hospital, so it's necessary to get that, to have fluidity through that passageway. And so we've been trying to work with the city to revamp or redesign that interchange. And it was on the table 10 years ago when I moved to Maillardville. Somehow it's fallen off the table, but I see the challenges. There's two municipalities working, New West and Coquitlam, plus you've got the Ministry of Transportation. So we're going to keep working with the city and the ministry to try to get that changed. So projects in Maillardville, there's a lot. You witnessed Century Developments, which was beside Mackin Park on the west side of Mackin Park. That development 3 years ago, there was 300 units proposed, and we were shocked at the size. And we're like, how are you going to fit 300 units on that property? But that company ran into problems, and Century Group, who's a larger organization, took over that property, and now they want 1,400 units on that property. So wow. Yeah, and so it's a huge increase in density. There's that project. There's the Horizons 21, which is at Blue Mountain and Lougheed. That's a 21-story development that actually went into insolvency recently. It was just bought again, so we're looking forward to plans on that area. But so those are two big ones kind of in the next year, 2 years. But we've had, 1,000 or more new developments just in the last, 2-3 years. So the density is coming. And it's not just the big projects, it's the infill projects. That gentleman from the other night from Zacho, he was building a number of projects in the area that say had 7 units here and 8 units here and 9 units here. When you accumulate all that new development, there's a tremendous amount of development in the region. So yeah, lots of new projects and lots of new development in the region.
Yes. At the meeting, I remember some people were asking, are we keeping the style, the original style, the French style, with the La Galerie we see in French all around. And of course, I think the new houses are coming. They're more modern looking. Yeah. And some people are concerned with that. What's your take on that?
My view on that generally is that it seems as though, the French culture in Maillardville is being slowly chipped away over the years. And we have a tremendous history of French culture in Maillardville, from the early pioneers, from Fraser Mills. That was the early Coquitlam. And so I think it's important to maintain that culture. But even the structure that we were in a few nights ago, Genevieve,
the Maillardville Community Center, which is beautiful.
It is.
But very modern, yes.
Very modern, but its former name was
Place Maillardville.
Place Maillardville is on Brunette, but
across the street. No, yeah, okay.
Right, but it had a French name prior to the Maillardville Community Center, and there you go. We can't even remember the French name before it was the English name, and that's a perfect example of how the French culture is slowly being chipped away at. So I think it's important to maintain the French culture wherever we can. And a lot of these new developers that come in, they will show you the accents on the windows and lots of efforts to do that. So there seems to be an effort in that regard, because they know at some point they have to bring their projects to council. And I think that's what council's looking for as well, with the help of people like Johan Dumas and their influence. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to, at least with, when they were talking, and there's some community projects to have a little bit of the French influence in there. Of course, I'm biased, right? Right. French Canadian myself. Oh, yeah. So, is there any activities? What's happening? Are you guys with the association planning things for the residents of Maillardville?
Yeah, we're very engaged. One of the big functions of our group is to advocate for the community, right? And so we're at City Hall on, a fairly regular basis, depending on our time. Obviously, we're a volunteer organization to advocate to make our community better, right? To fit our mission statement. So if you look at the lighting on Brunette that was put up about 3 years ago, at a town hall meeting, our group advocated for lighting on Brunette because Maillardville because it reflects well on the entrance to Maillardville, but it's also the entrance to Coquitlam, right? And Brunette needs some help in certain areas. So the city responded big time, and they put lighting not just on Brunette, but they put it on Mackin Park as well. And they left it up for a lot longer than the Christmas season. So we're really grateful for the city for responding for that. But I would call our track record with the City of Coquitlam in terms of advocating mixed. I mean, there's good and bad. I was at a public hearing late 2023 when the proposal was to add a wine store at Loblaws or Superstore. And there was a tremendous show of opposition at that public hearing, including myself representing the community organization. We had a lot of the local businesses there that would have been impacted by this. We had Fraser Health there to oppose. So it was a formidable opposition. And when it came to time for council to make a decision, instead of opposing it as the night unfolded, that would have been a natural conclusion. Instead of opposing that, they decided to kick the decision over to another meeting. And of course, a couple weeks later, they met, not publicly, but privately, and approved it, 8 councillors to 1. They approved the wine shelf. So I would call our track record in terms of working with the city mixed. They've been tremendous in some areas, right? But, I've spoken to councillors privately after this decision because I'm just wondering what their consciousness was and why they came to that decision. A lot of them said that, listen, we're capitalists, and this is why we allowed this wine store to come to Superstore. But it's actually a certain kind of capitalism, isn't it? It's one that supports multi-billion-dollar companies from Toronto at the expense of our local distributors. So we're going to keep trying, keep working with council, and keep trying to make our community better. I mean, if we can't count on our local leaders to look out for our local businesses, then who else can we count on? So.
No, it's always good when we have good relationship with the city, but sometimes we have to advocate for ourselves, right? I know what you're talking about, right?
That's right.
Are you working sometime with other organizations together? Let's say maybe I'm thinking about the Société francophone de Maillardville, but that's more the French, but it's any other organizations like that in the area?
That's a great question, because I think that our volunteer organizations really have to band together. Again, a lot of the decisions when it comes to development in our communities and density and parking and infrastructure are being taken out of the local government hands, and they're being put at the provincial level. And so it makes the work our ground street level community associations do more important than ever. And so, yes, we are in touch with the Austin Heights Business Association. We're in touch with Société Francophone. We're in touch with Place des Arts. We invite them to all of our meetings, and we've made efforts. And we've met with them individually, and yeah, I mean, there was at one point before my time in Coquitlam a sort of an advocacy group that had representatives from various community associations across Coquitlam. Ranch Park, Burke Mountain, which is a very active organization that you're involved with, very impressive group, and a couple of others, Mundy Park. So all these community organizations had a representative that would show up at City Hall for a meeting and meet with council one-on-one. I think that's roughly the format, but I think that's tremendously useful for the residents to have that sort of ground level advocacy and representation in front of council. That was canceled for some reason years ago, again, before my time. But when you ask me about associating with other organizations, I think the more we do that, the better. The more we can band together, the better. And we continue to make efforts to do that, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You touched on earlier about how things are changing from city to government. And why do you think this is impacting you and your voice as a resident of Maillardville?
Well, I mean, I've been to dozens of these public hearings over the years when it comes to development in Maillardville, my old neighborhood in Oakdale, across Coquitlam. And I don't want to overstate the impact of these public hearings because, again, you get situations where you get a tremendous show of opposition, but council will still approve these things, right? But it is a venue for the public to have their say. And it's a venue that's on record, in front of the camera. And in that sense, it's effective, if only to serve the record, right? But those public hearings are being reduced, and my understanding is that as long as a development fits into the official community plan, then they don't have to have a public hearing. And so Maillardville has a Maillardville neighborhood plan where they've designated high density here and medium density here and single family homes here. And as long as a development prior to this, every development, no matter whether it fit into that those densities, would have a public hearing. Now, the only public hearings you'll have are proposed developments that are outside of that official community plan. So that's a little technical, a little boring, but the fact
we need to know all this.
Yeah. So for example, the Century development, the 1,400 units beside Mackin Park, that will require a public hearing, right? And so you know, I don't want to overstate the impact of these public hearings. I've found that, you know, over the years that steering the agenda at City Hall has been very difficult. And I put myself in their seats a lot of the time. I've tried to put myself actually in their seat a couple of times. I've ran for council. But I think about where they're coming from. And, you know, by the time these projects get to public hearing, there's been so much money invested and so much momentum going towards this development that it's very difficult to turn that ship around just from one public hearing. So I think we can do better in terms of engaging the community and you know, have more of a consultation process from the beginning to the end, not just sort of culminating in this public hearing at the end where people get up to speak. It's more performative than impactful, in my opinion.
I like what you just said, that sometime when you wait until the end and there's so much time and effort and money that's invested, now you need to, or something can be completely forgotten, and now we need to backtrack, and it's such a waste of time also.
It's true.
And then, yeah, those public hearings sometimes, like on projects, should be a little bit more, or more of them, right?
Right.
Like, I like that.
Well, there will be less of them based on the new legislation.
Yes,
right?
now,
Again, a lot of these decisions will go to the province, again, which makes the work we do as a community association more important than ever, in my view.
To advocate and go talk to them. Yes, absolutely. So what challenges have you encountered with the resident association?
Well, we can't necessarily represent the community unless we have a wide cross-section of the community participating. So that's been a challenge, to get people involved. You notice our annual general meeting the other night, we had, you know, projects at that meeting that will really transform things in Maillardville. And sometimes you expect people to be more engaged based on that, but people have lives. They have kids, they have families, they have jobs, they have other things going on, and I totally respect that. So I think one of the biggest challenges is just trying to get people involved and engaged with this. You know, I've always found it to be an honor to serve my community in this way, and I've sort of found my way there. But so I think that the biggest challenge is just kind of getting the community involved, because we're all raising our kids in the community. We all have grandparents in the community. You know, we all want to preserve French culture in the community. So we have to really be involved, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And so it's reflected in our elections. You know, we're really only, the last election, I think 1 in 2 in 10 residents showed up to vote.
In just the last one?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
So
there were some changes in that election with different boundaries. What do you think of that?
Different boundaries? Oh, you mean
Maillardville? Well,
yeah. Oh,
yes,
the federal.
Federally, Maillardville was not like part of, it was, well, it's always part of the Tri-Cities, don't get me wrong here, but I was surprised to see that now it was with Burnaby and New West.
Yeah.
The border had kind of looped around here.
Yeah, that's true. I imagine, I don't know a lot about the thinking behind that. I know if I was a candidate, I probably would have been blindsided by that, because now you have to appeal to a brand new set of constituents, right? Where you probably made a lot of good relationships with your existing constituents. So I don't have a lot of strong feelings around that. I mean,
I think it can be hard also for the resident of Maillardville, because all of a sudden it's 3-4 new candidate that is new, that they maybe don't really know, they don't have a relationship with. I mean, sometimes we have always new candidate, we know that, but then you have one that's been there for 4 years, then you can decide if you want to vote for that person or not. And because I did talk with a few people being in the area, and a lot of people have no idea what was happening. So I was surprised, and I wanted to know what you thought about that.
Yeah, no, I always vote based on how integrated our candidates are with our community association, and we put the red carpet out to them every single meeting and every chance we get, and I mean, you know, we don't necessarily get the engagement from our local leaders like we'd like to. I mean,
which is important to have.
It is. But I think.
But Matt Dudronic was there at the AGM.
He was, yeah,
okay.
for
we have
sure.
to mention that.
For sure, yeah. Matt showed up, for sure.
Matt showed up.
And, but I mean, again, if we're going to have any success with the city, then we have to engage the city, and that's been a challenge. Engaging residents, so those are two challenges: engaging our leaders, engaging our residents, for sure, yeah.
Okay, so what's in the future project? What's the hope for the Maillardville Residents Association?
Right. Well, I mean, our goal again is to make the community a better place to live. And so we've got thousands and thousands of new units being proposed. So on the development side, we've got Fraser Mills, right, which is developing beside and that's not necessarily in Maillardville, but it'll certainly impact Maillardville, impact that Brunette interchange.
Because there's part of a development being planned there, I'm hearing, right?
Yes.
Do you know a little bit about it?
It's going to be massive. Thousands and thousands of new units, for sure.
And right now it's just the mill that is there.
No, it's actually got a couple of structures on it, and they're selling actual high rises that they're building there. So that is
going to be accessible to the SkyTrade, walkable. Is it walking distance?
I guess you could walk there, right? But I mean, so the Braid SkyTrain station. You could walk there. I mean, it's not exactly accessible, and it doesn't exactly have the infrastructure, the walking paths to get from Braid to Fraser Mills. But
no, you'll have to come back on top, and then we'll go back to talk about this. The intersection that is, I know I've seen a couple accidents myself there. People are trying to merge it, people are coming this way, especially going towards Maillardville.
That's right.
People are just hitting each other there.
So at some point you think, well, what's our best opportunity to advocate and lobby the governments at various levels? As I said, you got the Ministry of Transportation plus Coquitlam plus New West, and you say, what's the best time to sort of get in there and try to improve that interchange, and our view is that it's before these developments are approved, right? And so we're going to work hard before the Century developments approved to advocate for at least some sort of sign of progress as it relates to that interchange, because they just can't keep bringing thousands of new residents into the area without improving the infrastructure. It's just putting the cart before the horse, and.
Yeah, no, I can see that can be a problem with everything that is planned. I even heard they're going to have some stores or something down there. I know I was looking a little bit, talking with some people about it, and I was like, wow, that looks like a fun project. But again, bring more people. Now we need to talk about infrastructure, like you just already mentioned.
Right.
Now I'm curious if we talk a little bit about the history of Maillardville. Mm-hmm. So I know in 1909, the Mills was there. French came over, and then I'm just curious to know: are you happy with the representation from the city of showing the history of Maillardville? And is the cities doing enough? Are you guys doing enough to show, because it's such a very specific French history there?
Yeah. Oh, well, I would say, there's positives in terms of, I think there's a filter at City Hall for new developments. They are required to have some French features when they build there. Joanne Dumas is planning a very interesting project on Brunette Avenue there, where the old Van City parking lot is, which sounds really interesting, especially in terms of propagating the French culture. However, that community center that we were in the other night had a French name before. Now it's an English name, and so
it kept Maillardville though.
It did.
It's part of that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a challenge to keep that French culture going. But it's not just the French culture, which is should be embraced, but it's also, City Hall used to be on Brunette Avenue, right? There used to be a restaurant called Trev's on Brunette, right across the street from Place des Arts. And there was actually another building beside that. They're historic buildings. They had been there for decades and decades, if not like 100 years. And so Trev's was designated a historic site because it was an ice cream bar, and they used to cut hair there. Really interesting place. And the owners of the place were really kind of characters. But of course, the councillors and the mayor from City Hall across the street on Brunette used to come there and hang out. And of course, it would be a place for residents to mix there and stuff. So there were some plans at one point to make Trev's kind of recreate that type of environment, at least a social gathering place on Brunette. But
which that would be amazing.
It would be amazing,
yeah.
exactly. They decided that it would have cost too much to maintain the existing structure, right? But I thought that would have been a nice feature on Brunette Avenue, and we'd like to see Brunette animated, right? I mean, I love the lights and the work the city's done there. I mean, but the street front needs work. And that Century Developments, that group was talking a lot about what kind of street front they'd like to see on Brunette Avenue too. I think they make a big difference. I mean, it's walkable, of course, in certain areas, but we'd like Brunette. It's the entrance to our city, the entrance to Maillardville. We'd like to make it a very welcoming and walkable area for sure.
With a French twist.
With a French twist, sure, exactly.
Absolutely. So Ben, is there anything else that we didn't cover and we should be talking about today?
No, I don't think so. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely.
And I love the opportunity to get the word out from our community association. I would tell our fellow residents in Coquitlam, if you have an opportunity to create an organization, it's a fairly simple process. It's a nonprofit. We do an annual filing. But when you are trying to get things done in your community, whether it's shape a development or stop crime or just make your community a better place, you're a lot more impactful coming to City Hall with an organization behind you than you are coming individually, right? And so, and the more of these local community associations that we get established, the more power residents will have to shape our future and steer the agenda at City Hall, right? And band together. So our organization is strong, but we want to see other organizations to connect with all across Coquitlam to help make the city a better place to live.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for taking the time to talk with our listeners, and we'll have to do that every year. I think we need to talk about Maillardville every year, and we need to know what's happening. And I heard what's coming. The French Scout are celebrating their 70th anniversary, I think, coming up soon. So that's a big milestone for the French community in Maillardville. But I think it's going to be quite a big celebration. It's going to be at the Maillardville Community Center.
That's right.
Beautiful community center.
That's right. Should be a great event.
Yeah, I think it's going to be another great event. But one more time, thank you so much for joining me today. And you're quite a community leader. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And they're really lucky to have you as the president there. So keep doing the great work. Thank you, Genevieve. Appreciate the opportunity. You're doing a great job here. And thank you very much. Thank you so much. From the Tri-Cities Community Television and myself, Genevieve Kyle Lefebvre, thank you so much for watching today.